Welcome to the Phlarpin Podcast. Phlarp stands for Park Hills Live Action Role Players. We are a medieval fantasy-themed LARP group that engages in unscripted combat against each other using padded LARP weapons and a shared combat system. We operate out of Park Hills, Missouri every Sunday from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. It is our hope here at the Phlarpin Podcast that through the utilization of this platform, we can expand on the ideas and suggestions taken from our players in order to maximize player retention and to expand our player base. The Phlarpin Podcast is made possible by support from our players and listeners like you. If you would like to support us, please visit our Patreon where you can do so for as little as $3 a month. Also, any engagement on our YouTube or Facebook pages is much appreciated, and thank you for listening.
And we're live. Welcome to the Phlarpin Podcast.
In the dungeon.
I mean, it's always in the dungeon.
Yeah, you can start that.
Just press
the button on top once.
When you got to explain
Yeah,
to somebody how to turn on a GoPro.
There you go.
Jeez.
Yikes.
Hey, it took me.
We are
Don't throw yourself under the bus, okay? I'm not taking blame for that, Skylar. What I will say,
it's a good thing that you guys switch seats.
yeah, that's fair. Because that Arno kid,
Indeed.
I agree.
yeah.
100%.
So anyway, you gonna introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm your host, North.
And I'm Brandon Fraser, or Davine Allwyn.
And I'm Chris, or Eric the Rod.
The Rod.
The Rod.
Wow.
The Rod God.
I'm Skylar.
I'm Arno, also known as David.
Hello, this is Trinity, your friendly editor. With a quick recap, we had about 20-25 people. We did a costume contest. The winner was Trinity, followed by Squishy and Yee Futin. We did a patrol for Cricket and Susan. We did a last man standing. Rand won. Pius came in second, and Vixie came in third. We did a scramble, a jailbreak, which the first round was Lord Rand, Heston, and Pius. The second round was Rose, Trinity, and Heston. We also did a couple rounds of Pandemic Panic. The first round, the zombies won, which were Pius and Lord Rand. The second round, the winners were Trinity, Pius, Heimdall, Gregor, Heifer, Lord Rand, Elderon. And then we played 2 rounds of Minion. Pius won the first, and Mercer won the second. Thank you very much.
And this is the Phlarpin Podcast. We're going to upload this one as potentially, we're going to do a recap on this one because we're not sure whether we're going to use this one for a backup or it'll be released the weekend after the Super Bowl or not. So you're either going to be hearing this the weekend after the Super Bowl or some weird week in the middle where we needed an extra podcast. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will have to come up with like a potential code word for this one that may or may not be used. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wait a minute, did we?
We did.
We did.
Okay.
You were zoned out.
It was.
It's okay. It's all going to be okay.
It was Super Bowl. Remember, it was Super Bowl.
Was the last one.
She's like, okay.
I'm not saying we have to do it right this second. I'm just saying.
What is in that
Okay.
you...
Well, if anyone thinks of one in the middle of whatever, just let me know.
Sure.
So the 2 subjects I have that are perspective or potential things that we could talk about is, and they kind of go together a little bit. One is phases. So I know for sure that there are going to be, or I think that there are going to be, just as a little bit of a more context, 3 phases of Phlarp. One is at the park. 2 is at being. I hit that really hard. 2 is being on property, and 3 is having the game fully developed and just basically adding to the basically fully developing the systems we already have for Phlarp that we can't implement, at the park or whatever. At the property, once those are all implemented all the way and we're just moving forward, that would be phase 3.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and then the other subject, everybody's just looking at me. The other subject was the differences between property and the park. So they'll kind of go a little bit parallel. I could also use this conversation. If we just talk about the differences, I could probably use that conversation to create the phases, or to plug things in at the appropriate phase. That's how I plug things in.
Plug things in like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Now I know.
Sometimes like this.
Gonna mix it up on us, huh?
Yeah.
Not every plug's the same.
Right. You know.
AC or DC. Got it.
Sure.
Okay.
So what would you guys? I guess we'll just talk about the differences between property. We've all been to property, right? Except for I guess Skylar,
I've never been.
right?
Yeah.
But
I don't know why you're looking at me. You know, I've been to property.
yeah, and you were there for a little bit. Right?
I have not been to the first property,
The
Right.
Florence Freeway.
the Florence Freeway, but I was at the property in Fredericktown.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there for a little bit, and I enjoyed it. I had fun.
And then I guess maybe when we kind of explain each thing, I'll elaborate a little bit on exactly how it works. I know for sure one difference is one of the biggest differences is events have their own particular area that you play in. So the way it works now, we kind of, we chill at the pavilion or whatever, and if you go outside the pavilion in between events, it's considered campaign. And then when we call an event, the area where we play events at, well, basically the entire area besides the pavilion is now no longer a campaign. Campaign gets like turned off so we can go play events. But I know when you go to property, you basically have two different areas. One where you play events in, and one where you play campaign in all the time. The idea being that when it's fully developed, there'll be people over there. Some people won't even play in all the events. They'll leave people in campaign on purpose and only send so many of their players into events, which is also the reason why you can only have 6 people in events, 7 if you're the king.
And clans he's referring to.
Yes, as a clan, right? As a people, as a clan, and then, but 8 total in your clan. The idea being that you would leave those 1 or 2 people back at your keep, which is another system that we don't use at the park, the keep system or the siege system, in order to help alert your clan that might be in the event if your keep starts getting attacked. So it's kind of all those things are it kind of takes property for it to even be a point to doing that. But so the difference would be is when we call events, like I said, campaign just goes. We just call an event. We say, hey, we're playing this event, and you can go over and you get logged in for it if you want to, or if you want to stay in campaign or just keep hanging out doing whatever in town or whatever, then you can.
I know that whenever I was out at the Fredericktown property, like we kind of did that, and it was really fun. No matter what, we enjoyed going to events. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just rubbing my head.
Okay. I mean, I wish that I was able to join while you guys were at the Florence Freeway, because everybody's stories of that are epic. So that's why I wish I would have been able to go for that. But I mean, no matter what, the experience that I had at Fredericktown is, I could see what you were talking about, and I could also envision the battles and being able to know the difference between people at your keep trying to make sure that it was stabilized versus having everybody while we're at the park. So I get it.
I've never been at the properties or anything, but I can see a significant change from where you usually do it in that plain grass, and then when we did it today with that new game, and where there's trees and woods and stuff, there was a significant change in the place.
That's actually a really good example of kind of what the difference is, because like the thing we did in campaign, that might be something that it's not really an event, but it's just something we still do because of the way, which is another system, I guess. Another system that we don't have now, but we will when we go to property, is Wandering Monsters. So it allows people to sign up for Wandering Monsters. Generally, I think we even had a way to do it before where you generally signed up as a clan. So like, instead of it necessarily working the way it would work now, instead, there'd be events going on every couple hours or whatever in that area, but in the campaign area, I'd have it set up to where something like that could happen, like you were saying, with more role play stuff and monsters and stuff, and then that would be a way to try
Perfect.
Sorry.
a way to try to make that happen in sort of an approximation of that. It's very close. It's very similar. Like those two games contrasting, the way everybody was really role playing, and that's another thing about the property too. When you're on the property, it's almost weird to not role play, as opposed to the park where you have some people role playing sometimes here or there, and sometimes everybody is, but generally they're not. Kind of, they're just kind of sitting around talking normal. But at the property, like I can remember times waking up like people waking me up and having to be like, okay, like, oh yeah, I'm at the property, I'm north or whatever, and then have to like start talking in character like right off the bat. And I loved those like times like that where I had to realize, oh geez, I'm like in the middle of something here, and then I have to like just come out and immediately start talking as my character or whatever. I don't know. I just thought those times were really cool.
Yeah, for me, the big difference is that anytime I go, and let me preface by saying this: I would rather have Phlarp at the park than no Phlarp at all. Period. End of story. I think we're doing a lot of good things at the park that make it way better than any time we've ever done it at the park before.
True.
Okay, so let me preface by saying that. But there are times when I would go out to the property and we would have to stay out there and we would put up hammocks and we had buildings and like I had my own keep area and whatever, that I would forget about being Brandon. I would forget about being my own person. I would go out there and I would instantly go into I'm this character, especially like during like important events like Battle for the Crown and stuff. Like I legitimately felt like I was whatever character I had created. I don't know that I've ever done that at the park.
Right.
And it's against nothing against the park. It's just like being immersed in a world, like walking out at the property and I'm staring at the keep and the blacksmith shop and the tavern and the shopkeeper or whatever that sells potions. Like I see all these different buildings and I'm instantly immersed into that world. And I don't want to be anywhere else. So like you said, like I could wake up one morning and I'm mounting a tent in the middle of nowhere with nothing but a foam sword. Like it's like, oh yeah, I'm this person. Like I felt like that person rather than feeling like I was my own person, which to me that escape is really cool because I get to be whoever I want to be. I don't have to answer to nobody. I don't have to worry about my bills or my job or any of that stuff. Like I can worry about this Phlarp world that we've created that I love so much. And for me, that was everything.
Another interesting element too is the fighting at night or things happening at night, like just having a fire going and you're standing there with a sword in your hand looking out in the woods. It's just really neat to think, oh, this is so cool. It's like we're just, in medieval times or whatever, like you were saying, I'm just here in the woods, with ogres and goblins or whatever. I can remember like hiding in the woods and stuff or creeping through the woods and it being like, I don't know, really intense, even though.
Oh, I got some crazy stories from out there.
Yeah, there's many. Yeah,
I mean, and like there's small things like, okay, like at one point I decided I wanted black longswords. And the reason I wanted black longswords is because when we fought at night, you couldn't see the swords. Like
savage.
Like you were just getting smacked and didn't know where they came from. They were awesome. They were my favorite swords I've ever had. In fact, they're still kind of out there. I taped over them and they became way too hard. But they were great swords for a while. And they would fit perfectly in the game because they were literally 40.5 inches.
Nice.
Nice. So they were like a perfect one-handed weapon. But just little things like that. And then, of course, there's like fonder memories from like, I remember one time North and I and Theo were out there talking about something or another, and he was trying to say something. I don't remember exactly what he was trying to say, but he used the wrong terminology, and he basically said he wanted a 10-minute recession instead of a 10-minute recess, I think is what it was.
Yeah, because we were like, what should we do next?
And then so he's like, oh, well, we'll take a 10-minute recession. And then, of course, like, we are just, like, playing into it. Like, it's a joke. Like, we're messing with him. We're like, oh, my God, I don't have any money. The freaking cost of milk is freaking $17 a gallon. Like, it's like whatever.
I'm like, what? The economy collapsed?
Yeah. So, eventually, out there, we made it this whole thing where, like, the king in maybe North, like, could basically announce once a weekend, hey, there's a 10-minute recession. And that essentially meant, well, we made it to mean that no one was safe anywhere. Like, you could kill anywhere in town. Like, it was, like, free for all for 10 minutes. And
unless you were barred up in a building, like if you went in the tavern keeper could be like, no, we're locking the door. Nobody else.
Which I never saw that utilized.
That was just to help the people that didn't.
Like non-combatants.
Yeah, people that just didn't want to get barreled over because people are running around in town trying to kill each other or whatever.
Right. So like, Skylar.
Yeah, if she didn't want to fight or you didn't want to fight, you could just be like, oh, okay, we're going into the tavern. We're not dealing with this nonsense.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Arno and I are beating each other outside.
And it didn't start like that. It went to that because people were trying to fight in the tavern. They would try to take it into the tavern, and I was like, no, we gotta at least stop like right here, because they were using the gate. Remember one of the first times we did that, they were trying to use the doorway of the tavern to like
to like funnel
fight in, to funnel them so they could keep them in one direction, you know.
But the whole point is like, I feel like there's potential when you go out to personal property that we just don't have at the park because we're limited on time. You can't build any permanent structures.
That's a
that
big
doesn't
one.
make the game not fun. It's just different. And so like people that haven't been out to property, like, I don't want to tell you that this version of our game is not fun, because that's not true.
No.
Like this, it's awesome. It's still awesome.
I mean, everybody's having fun. So.
Right. But it's so much different. Like when you get out to property, and then there's some people may not like it. Like I'm not going to say everybody will, but I think the people that will appreciate it 50 times more.
Yeah.
It's kind of a whole nother world at the
Literally,
property.
that's why it's so good.
And I think there's something to be said too about how we're on somebody else's, like, not land, but we're on somebody else's like space.
Sure.
So there are some people there that are just walking their dogs and they're just walking by. They don't really care about whatever we're doing.
That's what I mean. It's hard
At
to get
Phlarp,
immersed.
Anybody there has had to drive and get there, and they're going to be the weird ones if they're there and not participating in this thing. Like, it's so much easier to just get everybody in the fold than it is at the park, because, like, you know, there are people there that basically everybody at Phlarp, whenever we're at property, is there because they want to Phlarp. They're interested in Phlarp, which isn't necessarily the case at the park, and so it makes it a little awkward.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot more distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like seeing all the, like you were saying, the buildings that aren't, you know, constructed like that and stuff, it kind of just pulls you out of it easier, quicker. It's easier to, you know.
Well, it makes it harder for you to be more immersive. You can't like progress into the story mode or progress this part or, you know, do that part, because you can't get too immersive to, because you're at a park.
And which is another system that we can kind of explain a little bit. So there's another system that we had where the players could progress story-wise. Like right now, we do have story as to what is going on, but we can't really expand on that story much. But when we go to property, we'll implement I don't even know what we call this.
It was the coolest thing at Phlarp.
campaign
I will say
mode.
that. It was my favorite part of Phlarp.
I guess it was like campaign mode, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, it was so like, I mean, how would you describe it? So basically at the park right now, we play events, and there's a little bit of role play that goes on between the clans, but as a general rule, like, there's just not that much role play right now. There's just not that much.
Right.
But out there was a whole story mode going on top of everything else, and it actually made it a lot of fun for everyone. So there was like built-in characters and classes you could unlock, and different races you could unlock. And so like when we first started, I don't even remember all the areas we went through, but one of the first areas we did was like this barbarian area to the north.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm not going to go through all the story or whatever, but it creates characters that, like, you're like, no, I'm going to kill this person.
Mm-hmm. Like, what it does is so like everybody starts where, even when we go to property, this is how it'll work. We'll say, well, which direction do we want to go? And we'll just pick from the 4 directions. So you can move quadrilaterally. You know, you can move up, down, left, right on a map. There's undiscovered areas on left, down, up, right. If we decide to look at one of those areas and get it uncovered, then what we do is we get together. The way the system worked before is you'd have to get together a gold, which is 100 copper, and you're paying 100 citizens, basically, that aren't heroes, that can't res, so they don't take a lot of risks. They don't go in there and get crazy or nothing. But it's also a way for me to tell the players how difficult that area would be. So they send the scouting party there, which is all just a roleplay thing, basically. They just say, yes, I want to sit in a scouting party. I say, okay. And then the next week, that scouting party sends back a piece of paper saying what they found and what's going on there.
And not to cut you off, but
No,
you can go back to it. But there's a little bit more than that too. Like, it's even more detailed than that. We sent out specific, like, scouting leader.
Yeah, that's true.
People, like, to different areas. So like, you know, we could get into that conversation, but I won't right now. But there was one female who we sent to like some pretty like impossible challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but anyway, but there would be like a whole scouting report that would come back that would be like, oh, well, 90 of your 100 farmers
Right.
basically came back alive, which basically told us, okay, well, that area is not that hard.
Yeah,
And
it's like
you
a
would get-
percentage of success, sort of.
Right. And then there would also be like, oh, well, we saw a lot of trolls in the
Yeah.
area, couldn't figure out how to deal with those. And like it would give you an idea of what kind of monsters were there, like how hard the area was, a general idea of whatever the story might be for that area, which was important.
Right.
Like one area, they had ran and saw halflings in conflicts with trolls. I don't even think they interjected in that particular conflict.
Well, we started.
But it was to let us
yeah.
know that basically halflings.
we could
That
unlock
if we went that
halflings.
way, we would unlock halflings. Yeah, like it allows
Okay.
you to unlock stuff, different things. And in roleplay, it's supposed to be like, oh, you unlock the trade route, made friends with these people, and whatever, you know. So that's why now we can play as halflings and go to that area. But also, like, if they were gonna, usually whenever they'd go to an area, I would add some kind of hook, like some kind of incentive to go there beyond just like. It's like when you're reading a book and you read the first 2 chapters or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, this is you know, they tell you something very interesting right from the beginning. And you're like, oh okay, I'm invested in this. Like the one guy you were talking about, how we sent one of our top guys there, and he challenged the barbarians. They came back with a pretty high percentage of the people, but one of the captains got challenged by one of the barbarians and lost.
Got whooped.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked, and that. I think it like messed him up. Like, didn't he like?
Yeah, he was done. Like he couldn't.
Yeah, I don't even think he could be a lieutenant or whatever anymore, because that's how the
Or
other
got demoted.
the
maybe?
woman that you were talking about rose up in the ranks beyond him after that.
Yeah,
And those weren't even real people. These were all just people
they
that
felt real.
Yeah.
At the
Right.
time, they felt real. And like, there's a little even bit more to this. So we would
Mhm.
meet as the ruling council,
Right.
basically. So
Oh yeah, I forgot to even say that part about
yeah, so we could have up to 9 ruling lords at the time. Each one of those lords can control land, which is again another thing that we don't get to experience not
Right.
at the park.
Mhm.
And we did try that at one time. It kind of worked. It was not as good,
Yeah. It's a
especially
lot.
without the whole siege element.
And it's a lot to put on the clan leaders to bring all their stuff that might be required of.
To be
Right.
fair, though, if you're going to be a clan lord, I think that that's something you should be up to the challenge for. But that's just me.
True.
But you would have all that going on, and then let's see.
You were saying that the top 9 clans meet together.
Yeah. So we would have like these ruling council lord meetings, basically, where like the 9 lords, and you could bring a second too, which I
Yeah.
always did, because if I was in a clan, I would want to be brought into this because it was cool.
Yeah.
And we would get like really emphatic. There was like times I would actually get mad. Like I was in there like yelling at people like, we're not doing it, because it's a vote.
And we made
you
it
know?
exclusive too, where you couldn't actually sit in on it unless
Yeah,
you
they
were
were, like,
part of
kicked
the
out.
ruling
It's a
council.
separate era, yeah.
Yeah, it was really neat though. But anyway, my whole point is we would have to decide on these scouting stuff basically as the ruling council. And that to me was like the coolest part of the whole thing. Like it was amazing. It was
Right.
awesome. In fact, and I think we've told the story here on the podcast before, but there was a time where everybody wanted to go to that halfling area.
Yeah.
We had sent out a scouting report, and like basically a bunch of people wanted to go to the halfling area because we had one guy who was like playing a halfling even without the class. And so we're like, well, we'll go do this. But then like when the scouting report came back, it was like, oh, poison, 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 poison. Basically, like, oh, that's what's going to happen when you go there. And we had like no clerics with cure ailment at the time. And I was like, I don't want to go to a place that's like pure poison and not have a way to heal myself. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
So we ended up convincing them not to do that, thankfully. Okay, well, I did.
Okay.
But I think it was the right call, even though like it kind of turned out to be almost like a meme. I do think it was the right call. I don't think we were ready for that area.
Right.
In fact, we did eventually get to that area, just we didn't get to spend very much time in it.
Oh yeah, because we did fight the trolls eventually.
Right. Which was fun. That was a very cool mechanic. I hope you keep that. I mean, and there's people who have been out there and fought those trolls. I won't tell anybody. I'm going to make them figure it out like you do with their ogres, you know? So,
Like, I mean, can everybody just see it? He's just like chilled.
He's
Just
vibing.
back. He's like, yeah, I'm in my throne of lies. I'm good.
It's me. I'm chilling.
I mean,
what's wrong with chilling, you know?
No, I mean it's cool. Like he's got his own throne. I brought my own throne.
Yeah.
The throne of non-lies, non-deceit. I'm just saying,
I mean, fair enough.
not everybody can be, terrible. So, but I mean, I get it. I can actually like envision that what you guys are talking about. I mean, because I spent that little bit of time, on property in Fredericktown. I can see exactly what you're talking about. About being on property and having the different buildings, the different keeps and seizes.
I mean that part that part alone is so important. Like I remember, we started a clan out there or whatever. Like the property somewhat new, the land areas hadn't really been developed yet. There was just rough land, and so it was like so exciting to be like, oh well, okay, well we're gonna pick this land area. We're gonna go home. We're gonna get a shovel to dig out a fire pit. We're gonna get tree limb cutters. We're gonna do rakes and all this other stuff. And we would like bring out equipment and like literally work on our properties, like our little area.
Right.
And with the understanding that if you ever like got sieged and got your stuff taken away, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
But,
Right.
we've even talked about, because there was a situation where you basically got like so much feet of rope.
Oh,
and
yeah.
your stuff had to fit within that amount of
And
rope.
that was like the wall.
It was like, what was it like? Was it 80 feet or something? I don't even remember what the number was. It doesn't really
I
matter.
think it was 100 feet, actually.
No, 100 feet of rope. And then we decided basically if you got like a building and you like put the doorway inside of the rope, that like you would have to siege in order to go in there. Like,
Okay.
So like only clan members could get in that building. We talked about like basically a plan where you could like build. Once there were 9 lords, all the 9 lords were taken, you could have basically liege clans, which is like clans that were wanting to get into the 9 lord spot, but they didn't have any land. So they would be like, okay, you can live on my land, and they would get their own walls. And we even like figured out a system building these liege clans around us so that you would have to go through a liege clan in order to get into us.
Right.
It was more of a strategic game than what can be done at the park.
Yeah, and the whole time it's strategic like that, not just
for like
events,
you go to
like the whole
sleep
time
and you're
there.
like, oh, who's taking first watch?
Right.
We would do stuff where we would get like bells with like fishing line and string it up around around the place and stuff. Like after it was dark that nobody knew, we were like, ain't nobody getting over here without us knowing about it. Right? Like this just stuff that like it can't be replicated at a place where it's not ours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm constantly asking you. I'm like, hey, have you heard anything back? Have you heard anything back? Because it's like,
oh, it's different.
I can't wait. I mean, I enjoy coming to park because, like I said before, it's like I enjoy coming on Sundays because Sundays are my vent. You know, and like you said, it's like you get to come out, and for 4 hours, I don't have to worry about, my bills. I don't have to worry about being Chris. I don't have to worry about anything. I am Eric the Red, the God. I can shut the self-proclaimed king down anytime. But it's like I get to go out there and just let loose and be me.
Yeah.
And be in a character that, whatever I want.
Yeah, it's like you set your baggage down at the entrance or whatever,
It's
at the
like
door.
Once I cross the sidewalk, I'm Eric the Red.
No, I get you.
And that's what I enjoy. And it's like as soon as we get property, all in. Like I would be like,
no, me too.
It's done, and I can't wait for us to get property. I can't wait for us to, just be at that point where, we can all gather together on weekends, where we can just sit around and
I'm with you.
BS, I mean, it's probably going to be hard to get Arno and Skylar out there, but, because I know one person that's really like, dirt, bugs.
Arno.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's so me.
Skylar was like, I'm about to get busted. You said that, and he's like,
no. Well, I was about to say, if my family or if my grandma still owned our family farm, that would be perfect. Like, because there's I don't know how many acres, but there's so many acres of woods there, and there's like rundown barns you can use, and there's just everything. and it would be perfect.
Does she not own it anymore?
No, she sold it to this guy, but my dad is in touch with him, and I could probably see, but I don't know. Yeah.
I will keep our eye out. I know that realistically we need roughly 10 acres.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if it was like a couple less than that or a couple more than that, we could work with it.
Right.
But, I don't know that we have a huge budget for it right now. But
Yeah. No,
that is something I wanted to say is that, we've got all these people on gold membership and stuff out at the park. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is, one, we are trying to make this a legitimate business.
The code word is gold thief.
Right.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And the second thing is our end goal is to get back to property.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And once we have enough money incoming that we can literally pay a mortgage, like we may just go get property.
Right.
And so like in the meantime, like we're looking.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But like I think if anything pops up, like, whatever. But I want everyone to know that the end goal for this whole thing is to get property.
Yes.
Because it's a different experience and because it's something we need in order to run the business legitimately.
Yeah.
And also, my son is losing it
That's what it sounds like.
at
They lose at a video game or
yeah,
something.
it's a game. It's it's not Fortnite. I was thinking Fortnite. But that's not it. It's the one they gave out with the second one, but it was basically the same as the first.
Talk about Modern Warfare.
Destiny?
No.
Halo.
No.
That's terrible,
Halo.
guess.
Apex.
No.
I don't have a
One of
second.
those.
Oh,
League of
Overwatch.
that's it. Overwatch. That's it.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
it. Overwatch.
That's a very ragey game.
I've actually heard that the second one's a lot better, though I'm not really an Overwatch person, so that means nothing to me. But
I did hear that they made a lot of good improvements based on the first one, but that it was basically just a revamped first one.
Yeah,
so
it's a
it wasn't
revamp.
a
really.
lot of games like that, though,
Yeah.
So
Basically, yeah.
you'll have that. Anyway.
One thing I will say, though, I wanted to talk about a little bit was the fact that we will not leave the park. So, like, in case people are wondering what we're going to do whenever we go to do this is I'm going to, whenever we get, like, let's say tomorrow we got property, I would keep hosting. I would do both. So at first I would work from Friday evening, like 3, all the way till, all the way through. I'd sleep there, Friday night, Saturday night sleep, and then Sunday I'm going to get up and still do the park. I'm going to do that until I can get somebody to take over at the park, basically, that is willing to do it for gold membership. Is the plan, is to, and if I can't have to, eventually I'll just pay somebody if that's not good enough for somebody. But if there's somebody that wants to keep playing just at the park exclusively and wants free gold membership, as long as they're going to run the thing, basically, which is basically just learn how to use the computer, because there's really nothing else you got to do other than being, I guess you do have to kind of like know how to like handle people and stuff, like situations, like PR situations or whatever. But I mean, even me, I'm not real great at it either. I'm just kind of winging it here. So, but, and then we're going to do the park a little bit different, but basically we'll never give up that spot at the park. And in fact, the park is going to be like seasons. So like, and by seasons, I don't mean we're only going to be like playing seasonally or something. I mean, every year your character will reset at the park. Your character at property will remain the same no matter what. Your character at the park, or like XP you get at the park, will for time will still, like, I guess some people this don't really matter. I might be going into too much detail here, but the people at the park, your time will still go towards your main character, but all the games you play and whether you win or lose or whatever, the winning XP will go to basically a separate character, or it can be the same character, but the XP or the levels are a little different. And like I said, every single year they'll reset. But the idea would be that every year, if you pay gold and you show up for every game and stuff, but by the end of the year, before it resets, you should be level 20, which would allow us to play test really high level abilities and see how that works and stuff. Which the only problem I foresee with it is that the park isn't really made for people that, like, somebody who's just watching Phlarp and then they come by and we're like near the end of the season, it might look crazy because we're just using all these like high level abilities and really complicated. That's my only like reservation that I have about it. But I want to make it really cool where people basically, if they have the time, they want to do both. Where they're like, yeah, I go to the property, and then on Sunday, whenever they stop giving me XP at 3 o'clock Sunday morning or whatever it is, I go home and go to bed, and then I wake up and go to regular Phlarp again at 1 at the park. And it's going to be like, I think I'm going to call it like the arena or combat arena or something like that. I can't remember what I had, but instead of XP, you get arena points, I think it's called.
Well, and I know some people that go to the park walk there.
Right. So they may
Yeah.
not be
So
able
they
to
might
make it.
not be able to make it
Mhm.
to the property.
Right.
And
Which
they'll
is an
still
issue.
have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I'll say this, and I'm not saying I'd pick up everybody, but if somebody was like, "Hey, I need a ride to the property," I would be happy to give somebody a ride to the property. My only thing is if I'm giving you a ride to the property, you go when I go and you leave when I leave. I don't want to take somebody and then have to take them home at 9 o'clock on a Friday and lose
Right.
that experience of myself because I got to take Jim Bob home. Like
Yeah.
that's not something I'm interested in. But if you can stay for the entirety of the time,
Mm-hmm.
or have somebody else come get you later or whatever, I'd be happy to take people to the park
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
eventually,
or to the property. Excuse me.
Yeah.
and eventually too, if we have enough, resources, or when we have enough resources, I'll say, I plan on trying to get like some kind of ride, basically vehicle that will go around and pick people up, essentially.
And to be fair, on that note, I do have my classy. Just so you know, I have my
Oh, okay.
chauffeur's license, so
Cool.
Same.
I can drive up to 15 people or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
Cool.
But mine's better.
Oh, okay.
Actually, mine's better because it has veteran on the back of it. Yeah.
Touche.
Top that one. That's what I thought.
Ah.
It's a lose. I just shut up.
Yeah.
There you
No
go.
way to respond to that.
There you go. I mean,
Um,
I want to ask Skylar, like, since you're not a combatant out there, but if if you were to come out to property, like, would you be able to enjoy just watching and kind of hanging out with everybody and still feel the enjoyment that we have at park as you would at property? Do you think you'd be able to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think that you would feel the same?
I mean, I would probably be more included if we get a property,
Okay.
but because I know there's a lot more to the property than the park.
Right.
So
I mean, you could literally have a job out there, like not like a real job, but
Right.
like
yeah.
you could
Like a
run the
side job.
tavern, or you could run a potion shop or whatever. Like you could like literally be given a role out there that like you run with it and have just as much fun as somebody who's playing a player out there.
And what you guys have explained from the recent properties, and yeah, I would enjoy it.
Dope.
See, I like that. I like knowing that we have, NPCs that would still come out to property and be like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna do the damn thing." I want to show up and they could be the bartender at the tavern. They
Sure.
you have our tavern tailor and merchant, and I mean I've seen out at Farmington at Fredericktown where Jessica was like, come out. They would she would serve a meal, and then like we would sit there and she would join in on some of the stuff we were doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no matter if we are on property or at park, I think more people, even as NPCs, would enjoy being at property because, like you guys have said, you are immersing yourself 100%. Would I go out and campaign? Probably not.
Recommend
that would probably spark some stuff that
I mean, to be fair, as
lot
a
of people-
marshal,
yeah.
you can go anywhere and be
Can't
protected.
be
They're not,
harmed.
as long as you're not messing with them. Like,
Yeah.
like you're just marshaling. Like
Yeah.
you could go anywhere you wanted, including campaign.
yeah.
But and that's a good point that you brought up too, because right now I technically have over 2 hours of drive time every Sunday.
Yeah.
I come down here, I go back. It's like, I don't know, we'll say an hour and 10 minutes each way. So you're talking 2 hours and 20 minutes of drive time to come down to the park for 4 hours. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But if we had property, I would drive 3 hours or 4 hours each way to be here. And one of the reasons is because right now I'm driving 2 hours and 20 minutes for roughly 4 hours of game time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I came down on a Friday at 3 o'clock, even if it took me 6 hours to get there and I didn't have to go home until Sunday evening, like that makes it a lot more worth it, I think.
Yeah.
Like knowing, oh, I'm going to be there for 3 days. It's kind of worth a 6-hour drive
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
or 3 hours or whatever it is. You know?
Right. No, I agree. And I mean, I each week, I'm constantly like, man, I cannot wait till we get to property, because it's like every time we start out there at park discussing something, he's always like, well, when we get to property, and I'm like, I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, so it's like the build up is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know that once we hit it, it's going to be like,
Sure. And to be fair, as like somebody who's like basically always been with Phlarp for the most part, there are certain things that I haven't even got to do that I think are going to be amazing. We never actually got to do sieges.
Yeah.
We were this close. Like we had everything worked out on how to
If
do
we'd
it.
had more people at the second property,
Yeah.
we probably could have done it.
Oh yeah, at the Farmington / Fredericktown
Yeah,
spot.
because I had it developed pretty good by then.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we were ready to go
Even
before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the conceptually, like it was fine. Like there wouldn't have been any issues, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I actually released the written stuff while we were at Yorvasper still.
yeah. I mean, so we had like ladders and like
Different
rams
ways that you
and
could enter
you could build
as an
fire moats
individual
and all kinds of stuff.
or as a group. And then there was one that most of them that got destroyed whenever you used them. And then, yeah, there was different types of walls you could have. So you could have like a stone wall, fire moat, and a water moat.
Yeah.
And you had to have a way to get across all three of those if you were going to cross them. And you had to decide how many people you were going to take across because that mattered on how much or which piece of siege equipment you used. There is a piece of siege equipment that allows you to get over stone walls that is reusable, but other people can steal it. And then there was even ways to like set up your own to defend and even booby trap your own. So that once they release the booby trap, it would still it kills them all, but then it protects the rest of your stuff the rest of the time. So that some of your siege equipment could get destroyed, but if they got unlucky and tried to destroy the wrong one, then they would be locked out from destroying any more until they got back.
right.
The main point.
It was a
being,
cool.
It just seemed like the whole thing
system.
was like a chess match, like the whole game,
Yeah.
and it was very political, like almost like a Game of Thrones-esque world, where like politics was just as important as everything else.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't explain this much either, but like what we were saying with the keeps is basically when we go to property, people can build their own buildings for their quote unquote keeps, which is where you can actually stay. I mean, you can stay there if you wanted to or whatever, like sleep in it or whatever, you know.
Build your own fire pit. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, you'd have to like pass the test or whatever to prove you were capable of not burning down the
Right.
forest.
Yeah, it has to
Right.
meet certain specifications, but
But then
even
you
the
know,
building
you
of
set
the
your
keep is
tent.
certain, and you get a res point, so you can res
Yeah.
at your keep.
It's very cool.
It's beneficial.
Yeah.
So something I look forward to getting back to. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. But you know, I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the journey, and
And then another thing too, I guess I was thinking of this earlier, where I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're fine. I was pretty much done.
I was going to say too, whenever we go to property, and this is especially applies if I guess it doesn't matter which one. So like if I just had the cash to buy property outright one day, then I would still do this. But basically, as soon as I have Phlarp eventually will make enough money that it can buy property, right, and afford a mortgage. Basically, as soon as it gets to that point, and then it can also pay me, I'm going to quit my job. Like, as soon as it can pay me more than what my job pays me now, I'm going to quit it. And then I'm going to put a lot more time into Phlarp. And we're actually eventually planning on being open 6 days a week. So maybe 5, but I'm pretty sure it'll be 6. So we'll have because we have a main area where everybody goes through whenever they go to the game. And that area is called the Grand Hall. It's out of game. It's always out of game. So what we'll do is on the days that we don't have regular LARPs, like Friday, Saturday, we'll have LARP. Sunday will be a day off for me eventually, and possibly Monday, but in the beginning it won't be. I'll be working Sunday too. And then on like Tuesdays, we'll have like a movie night. We'll try to get through The Last Dragon without falling asleep. And then, you know what popular movies people like? We'll just basically have a trivia night where we watch the movie and then we do trivia for it. And this will also give XP too. Like I plan on giving people XP for it.
You talked about having like a D&D night too, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a tabletop gaming night, or like a D&D, and then I think alternating between like some kind of trading card game, and I can't remember what the other thing was. There was something that we had to alternate on one of the days between a trading card game, like, you know, any kind of Magic. I play Magic. Like, we could have a Magic tournament, like, and then people just basically can show up when they can, and it still works the same way. Like, if you're there and you want to participate in the Magic tournament, it's probably going to be like $1 entry or something, unless you have gold, and then you know, you may not even have to pay an entry, and it would still be XP based. Like, all this stuff is going to be basically XP based, and then also a roleplay night. So there's going to be one night at least, I know for sure, that especially on the night after the king, you know, we get like a new king or something. We would like, it'd be like the next Thursday or whatever. It would be a very important roleplay night.
Have like a big feast. For
Yes, yes, and it would be the kind of thing where you literally, you could bring people that don't LARP to that and say, oh yeah, you want to come and see what we're about, you can come, and you're not going to worry about anybody coming up on you trying to fight you. We do not fight on this night. It's like it's a peaceful dinner night where we get together and have a dinner, and hopefully that is the same kind of thing where we're doing, you know, where people aren't going to have to put a ton of money up, because everybody that does put up money puts up enough for the people that don't, basically. But, you know, I mean, we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, there is also going to be like a role play dinner night, basically, where we come and we hang out, and it's all role play and everything. We stay in character, but there's no fighting, unless people want to get really cheeky with it.
Yeah.
I could see me allowing some types of fighting, but not very much.
Scripted stuff, probably.
Yeah, it's probably stuff you'd have to come to me first and make sure that it's cool. But
Yeah, I mean, we all know that scripted is really well, so that, you know, we can all be attentive to it. Is that the correct word? Attentive?
yeah, it makes
Yes.
it easier to know that it's happening.
Yeah, so that because a lot of people, whenever it's like unscripted and nobody really knows about it, they're all off guard and they're just kind of standing there like, what's going on? But when it is scripted and everybody's in the loop, it kind of makes it where everybody can kind of join in, and it kind of amps them up a little bit. I've kind of noticed that monster is getting really loud. But I mean, I enjoy having, you know, the RP aspect of it, so I can't wait for this to happen.
Yeah, and I guess what I meant was, like, if we say no blades, no bows, you know, we're like, you can't come in here with no weapons, and then
Leave your
somebody's
weapons at the
standing out in
door.
campaign, and somebody comes up behind him and pulls a weapon out and stabs him, I might still be like, okay, yeah, you're dead. Sorry, you know, like
Yeah.
you died. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's not something I'd necessarily encourage. Like, it'd have to be, it almost be something where they're like, you know, there's ways to do it, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, we don't have weapons at this thing. You know,
Okay.
be a cool bonding night for everybody just hanging out. And
Yeah, we could have like a regular thing where we actually have this one place we go to, I guess, like, I mean, town hall or whatever. We all sit down and eat. Like, we all sit down and have dinner or have lunch or whatever it is.
Yeah. And like, this is something that I've kind of brought up to you guys before, is like, with that, you know, crowning the new king, you know, it's the coronation of the new king, having a feast, and it's kind of like a ball of sorts. And, you know, you'd be able to eat and, you know, dance, whatever. And I think that would, you know, bring an aspect from outside people.
Can I hit the gritty at the dance? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I was thinking in my head.
Speaking,
Stop.
just he's there. Listen,
He is out in left
I just
field.
looked under the table. He doesn't even have his shoes on.
He doesn't. Like, I was watching him.
He's-
What do you
taking
think
his
about those
socks
feet?
off.
He's barefoot under
Like,
the.
they're
Like, this is a
Look at
lot.
that.
I was watching him
can
take
spread
his
them out.
socks off, and I looked at Arno because Arno was like, "What the hell?" And I'm like,
Well, because I watched him and he's just sitting down here.
See,
just
they're
like,
not so bad. They
and
could
then,
be
like,
on
you can
Feet
see his
Finder. Look
facial
at that.
expressions.
"That
Dude,
Those
I
are
can
like
do this.
monkey
I can
toes.
do. I know.
You
That's
say,
what
like,
I'm saying.
he could like reach
Look,
up
I
and
could do
turn the
this.
lights off with
I
his
could
toes."
peel a banana. I could peel a banana with these.
All right,
Okay.
stop. For real.
Okay.
Let's move on.
We found the guy's weak spot.
Okay, so now the question I
He's over here wheezing.
Just how I laugh.
I can't breathe. I can't. The question I have is, when we get to property, when it gets to that, How are we going to establish the podcast? Are we going to do like a
think
property
we'll
and
get
then
to that.
park day and then come back to the dungeon? Or, I mean,
We
I
don't
think
even
that's a
know
bridge.
what the property
Yeah.
is yet. So
I
I
think
mean,
we have
it's-
to cross that bridge when we get there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
yeah, but I want a plan, okay?
well, we
If
don't
it-
have
have
one.
one.
So
You're
there's
gonna
some
have to wait.
Ovaltine behind you. Drink that and
Here's-
chill out until we
here's
come
the
up with a plan.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. The sad part is, you two were talking the whole time at park about shoving things.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Why? Where did that
First
come
off-
from?
First off, when you're not privy to a conversation, there's usually a reason, right?
What happens at LARP stays at LARP.
Well,
Right.
this is Phlarp Podcast, so it circles around, sir.
To a certain extent.
Whoa. What was that? Oh,
Somebody's-
that was me.
Oh, because it's on the.
Oh,
thing.
sorry. And the score is 27-21.
Yeah. See, they're making their
Eagles.
comeback. I'm not shocked by that.
Mm,
This will come down to the wire, I think.
I agree.
It'll probably depend on whether if there's like actual building at the whatever property we buy that is an actual like let's say we got the Yorvasker property, there was a trailer there. I would put the equipment probably in that trailer, and we would just be able to do it there.
Okay.
Like sometime during probably on Sunday night whenever we end, I guess, or maybe Saturday night.
Yeah.
Might just have to meet on like a different day or something. I don't know. I guess it depends because you have to drive, so I don't know. Like you
I-
said, we'll cross that bridge when we get
Yeah.
there. But
I agree. I do want to be able to try and
you looking at my
have
toes?
a live. I would like to find a way to be able to have like a live podcast sometime.
Oh, speaking of which, I haven't busted it out yet, but I actually bought some.
Cleaner looking feet,
No, dude, what are you talking about, bro?
bro. Those are like, those things are dangerous. You know, if I
Do I have to
could
pull
get,
them above the table for proof?
No,
No.
let's not do that.
because
Creep
it'll
'em
be on
up.
my side.
Creep them up over there. They actually look terrible.
Would
though.
you peel a banana for him with those feet if he asked you to?
You
I
just
would
look
never-
for
I would
$8
never ask
You can
him.
join Feet Finder.
I would never, ever in my life ask him. So no,
Okay,
I'm gonna have to
what were
actually
you
join
talking
Feet
about?
Finder. Oh,
other
Let's
than
not
feet
talk about
finding.
So what were you wanting to pull out? Or
I
Yep.
I bought two. What are they called? Lav mics. I bought two lav mics with the Phlarp stuff, but they hook into an iPhone, so I don't know. Like it's weird, the little thing that they have that's a receiver. But basically, we could do in-game, real-life interviews, and it wouldn't sound like all crazy. I mean, it wouldn't sound crazy anyway, but the lav mics are nice. Like you could do like an interview or a confessional or something like that.
I've seen videos about people having the mic coming out their phone. They work, I mean,
yeah,
work
they
pretty
just
good.
turn it over and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and then
Yeah. So we have those two for live interviews if we ever want to try to do that. Especially when we go to property, that might be easier to do too. I always thought the confessional idea was funny, like to take a person in character off into like a confessional area.
You should have
What'd
done
think
that
about-
with
what'd
the
you think
Night
about-
Stalkers back when. They would all be like, "Oh, I definitely killed that guy." They'd be like, "Oh, does anyone know? No one other than people in my clan." Like, are you gonna release this? And then like we would just kill you like during the interview.
Nice.
We may
So-
have to try that. We may have to. If you can bring them out next week.
Yeah, someone.
Yeah, they're in the
Anybody
backpack.
hearing
I just
this
keep
just, like,
forgetting.
It's someone
screaming?
It is the monster in the
it's
vent.
Not. It's
You have a
just
te-
outside.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it might
is
be
it?
him.
It's next
It
door
might be
neighbors.
him, too. My neighbor's pretty
Okay,
wild.
so
Wow, that's interesting.
So anyway,
I think our listeners can hear this too.
that took a lot of energy. It was very straight, and like monotone. Is
Yeah,
crazy.
straightforward.
did he just say that like I thought he did? It's very straight,
very straight.
monotone, crazy.
Yeah, I mean they hit the same tone with their yell. They're like, or whatever.
Didn't like the old Power Rangers dude, Alpha 5 or whatever, used to go,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, is
I
that his
mean,
name? Alpha 5?
Yeah.
I don't
I mean,
know.
I like the Power Rangers.
because I never watched Power Rangers.
Because you're not cool.
Yeah, what was the name of
Yeah,
that
fair.
big head guy?
Zordon.
Zordon?
Yes, Zordon.
Did you ever see him in the movie when he was out of the crystal thing and he was just like a little baby looking thing with like a head? Do you remember that movie? When they had him out of the crystal thing, it was crazy. Do you remember this?
So on Dukes of Hazzard this week,
You don't remember that?
I don't know what you're
I
talking
think it
about.
was the Power Rangers movie that came out before this most recent one. So there was the other one with Ivan Ooze.
That was the best one.
The
was
one where
never
he
a
breaks.
baby in that
Yeah,
one?
he breaks the thing. Ivan Ooze goes there and messes everything up. And then they
Yes,
come
but
up and
he's-
Zordon's in this like. You don't remember that?
He's
Like,
not a baby.
well, he
he's
looks weird.
Oh my
He's in like a
God.
little bag or something. It looks
No,
like the
he's
actor.
not.
You
And he's
look
got his,
weird.
just his head, and just his face is sticking out of it, right? Am I wrong? Is that not what
It's
happens?
like his outfit. It's just a weird
He's
looking
not a
outfit.
normal looking guy. You remember this?
Okay.
no. How can we turn his mic off?
Why would we turn his mic off? He's got some really good stuff to input here. By the way, Ivan Ooze, okay, now that he brought that up, one of the best villains of all time.
Yeah, he's a great.
Ivan Ooze is awesome. Just saying. Anyway, I feel like we've gotten kind of tangent here. Whole point of this, property's awesome. We
Yeah, it's
need
true.
we need property. Okay, so that's what we're working towards. I'm trying to bring us back, you know?
We'll eventually be at property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
eventually.
Eventually.
and it'll be awesome.
And it's when, not if.
Right.
It's going to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
And
so like
You know?
die, and then it's up to you
It-
guys.
It's the win is like what day,
right.
but and it's not even an if, it's we are.
Mhm.
Right. Agreed.
We are.
So
Marshall.
anyway,
we are marshals.
I think we're good, guys.
All
we
right.
are
Well,
marshals. And
Um,
it's still.
I'm
Sure, do
gonna
we
I'm
need
gonna
to-
tell
do
a
we need
story
to-
before we leave. All right. So
Oh.
I told Rachel about the property, and I was like, hey, when we get property, I hope you know I'm gonna be working like, all weekend or whatever, because we were talking about possibly getting it. And I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. I'll be able to go out there and we can have event weekends again. Blah blah blah. She goes, oh man. She goes, I guess you're gonna be gone like Fridays and Saturdays. And I said, I'm gonna be gone whatever days it takes. I was like, you might as well give up them Fridays and Saturdays right now, because I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get Phlarp up off the ground. So she didn't like that. She was really mad at me, actually.
I've never met Rachel.
Not really.
Yeah.
She brought me a soda one time. Did you see her that time?
No.
plus, just because you see somebody doesn't mean you've met them.
True.
Yeah. I mean, I probably seen it, but the concussion.
Oh, was it concussion day?
No, that was apparently before, but like since the concussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
If you ever see a hot, sparkly blonde out there, that's my girlfriend.
Wow, Skylar. Wow, what happened?
Serious.
She
What?
sparkles?
Yeah, that's
like
part
a,
of it.
Like a vampire from
Like,
Twilight?
She wears like a lot of sequin type stuff and little gems and stuff.
So
Serious.
she's a cheerleader
When you
for
see
the
her,
Dallas
you'll know.
Cowboys.
You'll be like, wow, you're right. She does.
Should I walk up to her like the next time I see her out at Phlarp and be like,
Yeah.
wow, Jason said you sparkled and it's true. and just walk away.
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
Oh, you are sparkly. And then just walk away.
Confirmed.
Sparkles. And just turn.
Yeah, that would be weird. With no context.
Yeah, none.
Anyways.
Yeah, I think sparkly isn't accurate.
Does she even come out to Phlarp?
Not very often, though.
No.
I think I've only seen her out at Phlarp like 3 times, and the whole time I've ever Phlarped. 3.
That's saying a lot.
I
I'm just
know.
saying.
There's a lot. But, if it's not your shtick, it's not your shtick.
Yeah. Sorry, bro.
It's
I
all
like
good.
sticks.
So on that note, we hope you keep listening.
And we hope the Kansas City Chiefs win, but fighting in the name of our capital, Darvishan.
And we hope to see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.